What's up, y'all? Welcome to Flames Reaction Channel. So today's video, I'm getting ready to react D12. So with that being said, make sure you hit that like, comment, and subscribe button. And let's dig into this video, check out some of the best of D12 and their greatest moments of hip hop.
Going forward is to see if there's anything we can do to help their solo careers, and we'll always be friends, man. We always been friends.
Before D12 would become one of the most popular hip-hop groups of the late 90s and early 2000s, thanks in large part to the membership of Slim Shady, aka Eminem.
This right here is Swifty McVeigh. I myself, and Marshall Mathers. This is the con artist right here. He lies a lot. This is a Bizarre kid. We call him Bizarre because his hair always matches whatever color shirt he's wearing. Just the conniver right here. He flies a lot too.
Before D12 would lose both Bugs and Proof to gun violence throughout the course of their career.
Proof. That's how Proof was to me. He was a godsend to me because I know that I would not have made it without knowing him. He co-signed for me everywhere I went, and people respected him. His name meant something because they respected him.
Before D12 would be declared over and finished by none other than Eminem himself on his 2018 song Stepping Stone.
At the end of it, you said it's over. That's it. Were the members aware of that song?
They were.
Over the years, Detroit has produced many eclectic, eccentric, and talented artists, especially when it pertains to hip-hop. Few of these individuals have been more famous, though, than Eminem. But in 1996, 5 other Detroit-based rappers, Proof, Bizarre, Mr. Porter, Conniva, and Bugs, got together to form a hip-hop supergroup.
We were a group. We from the same hood and stuff, so me and him had a group called the Brigade, and we would always go up to the hip-hop shop with Maurice Malone on and all that stuff, and that's where we found these guys at.
Their own rise to success would be intertwined with Detroit's most famous son, Eminem, after he officially joined their group in 1999 following the death of their member Bugs, and D12, otherwise known as the Dirty Dozen, was officially born. With M aboard, their debut album Devil's Night would become a nationwide Billboard topper and slingshot them to superstardom. But just as Eminem's own demons would catch up with him in the mid-2000s, so would D12's, and the group would slowly break apart over a number of years. It was poppin', guys. It's your boy Marlon Palmer. Recent drops in this series have included looks at the cast of Everybody Loves Chris and Beetlejuice from The Howard Stern Show. Crazy stories. Please check those out. Since the show works off request, don't forget to leave us some ideas with who you want to see next, and I'll catch you guys after the intro.
You can join over 1 million people who are taking charge of their mental health. Better how about
The group, known as D12, originally began back in the late 90s and featured a large crew of members and affiliates, but the core 6 consisted of Proof, Bizarre, Conniva, Mr. Porter, Bugs, and eventually Eminem. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, that's cool, but that's only 6 people, not a dozen. So what's up with that? Well, the other 6 members are each rapper's alter ego. Proof was also known as Dirty Harry, Bizarre as Peter S. Bizarre, Conniva as Rondell Bean, Mr. Porter as Con Artist, Bugs as Robert Beck, and Eminem as Slim Shady, the real Slim Shady. All you other Slim Shadys are just... I'll stop. I'm sorry.
Everybody in D12 has got an alias. Eminem is Slim Shady. Swifty is Swifty McVeigh. The 9 is the Con Artist. But yeah, everybody's got their own little split personality thing going on.
When this group banded together, they dropped their first project, the Underground EP, in 1997. And while it was ultimately far different than the sound they would eventually settle on, it still featured solid performances and some super raw M verses. But before the group could go further and discover who they were as a collective, they faced their first brush with death. On May 21st, 1999, Bugs was murdered in a drive-by shooting after a friend's cousin was sprayed with a water gun that ultimately escalated to a tragic conclusion in which Bugs was shot and then ran over by a vehicle, ending this talented young man's life before it was time was due. Upon hearing about what happened, D12 was understandably devastated, but this tragedy ultimately brought them closer than ever to create a truly legendary hip-hop collective in honor of their fallen friend. Before he had passed on, Bugs had spoken highly of the rapper known as Swift McVeigh, which became the co-sign that would turn Swift into D12's newest 6th member. Then Eminem, who to this point had not officially declared himself a member of the group, signed on to become their de facto figurehead, and honestly, it couldn't have come at a better time. That's because M's own career at this point was blowing up, and his connection with the legendary Dr. Dre would prove to be beneficial for everyone. While D12 wouldn't appear in M's initial The Slim Shady LP, they would become an integral presence to his next album, the Marshall Mathers LP. A classic, absolute classic. Much like with Eminem at this stage in his career, shock lyricism would become a staple of the D12 brand as they embraced becoming the supervillains of the rap world alongside Slim Shady. From there, they parlayed this exposure into their debut studio album, Devil's Night, a reference to the tradition in and around Detroit of setting unoccupied buildings on fire the night before Halloween. You know, the usual stuff.
We wanted to do something, put our city on the map, and first thing we thought about was Devil's Night, because Devil's Night only happens in Detroit the night before Halloween, and our styles and the way we rap can relate to the essence of that day.
The album would go multi-platinum, and although their childish antics and ultra-violent lyrics ensured that they'd never quite received their due praise from critics, the group still became a runaway success commercially with hit singles like Fight Music and Purple Pills. Of course, over on TV and the radio, most of us knew Purple Pills by its censored name of Purple Hills. D12 had to edit the single in order for MTV to agree to air it, and while this was something Eminem rarely ever agreed to do for his solo work, he decided to acquiesce to this request, telling XXL Magazine at the time, I mean, we could stick to our guns and say, look, we're making it Purple Pills. And then guess what? No radio play, no record sales. If you want to eat, this is what you got to do. You got to change pills to hills. Even though their material was dealing with censorship issues, D12 continued to thrive. They'd go on to appear in Eminem's further releases like The Eminem Show as well as the 8 Mile soundtrack. They'd also appeared alongside their friend Obi Trice on his project Cheers. But you know how it goes with success. You'll find yourself surrounded on all sides by both friends and enemies. And D12 definitely had their fair share of the latter. One of whom for a time was the Detroit rapper Royce the 5'9". Back in these early days, Royce had beef with D12 after a misunderstanding led to bad blood. It all started when Royce said in a freestyle, anger management. I need to hire somebody to manage my anger. At the time, D12 was on a tour that just so happened to be called Anger Management, and they took this as a personal slight.
If you cool with him, why don't you put something in there to make the man even think that it's a diss? He said, anger management. Anger management is the name of Eminem's tour. Bottom line.
This feud began to heat up when Royce released diss tracks like Shit on You and Malcolm X, and D12 responded in kind with the song Back Down. Eventually, the beef would be squashed, but not before Royce and Proof both pulled guns on one another, got arrested, and then settled their differences from adjoining jail cells, which honestly might be the most Detroit thing I have ever heard.
We both caught gun cases.
That man got a felony, I got a felony. We and Royce had talked in the jail cell.
Proof basically was like, yo, I felt like you shouldn't have mentioned my name on such and such song. It was basically us getting all our thoughts out in the open.
After putting that feud behind them, D12 released their second album, D12 World, but to a lot of fans, something sounded off, especially when it pertained to M's parts. While the single My Band proved to be extremely popular, something had changed, and these days the album is largely forgotten by most hip-hop historians. These chicks don't even know the name of my band. That was crack. As it turns out, Eminem was quietly beginning to battle his many, many demons, including addiction and depression, and he took a step back from the band after the release of their sophomore effort. After this, the other members of D12 pondered what to do next, but then tragedy would strike yet again. This time it was Proof who would find himself a murder victim at a Detroit nightclub after an altercation turned violent in April 2006.
Proof was the glue that binded us all together, right? He did so much shit behind the scenes that I didn't even realize, and did things to keep us a group and to motivate us.
After that, D12 was more or less torn apart. Following 4 years of inactivity, they released a mixtape titled Return of the Dozen Volume 1 as a way to get back on their feet, but because the project lacked Eminem, who was working on his own solo album, Relapse, it never quite found its audience. The same can be said for Return of the Dozen Volume 2, which dropped 3 years later in April 2011. But then, only a few months later, Eminem posted a video to YouTube that showed back in the studio with not only D12, but Royce as well, stating that a new album would be on its way soon, with everyone reunited. But the rumored project has never seen the light of day. Instead, most members of D12 have gone their own way. First, Mr. Porter took up the role as Eminem's hype man after the passing of Proof, and these two broke off from the rest of the pack. Then in 2012, Bizarre left the group as well, citing creative differences. And while many of the members have occasionally reconvened for efforts like Bane off of Eminem's 15 compilation, Slim Shady himself finally put all speculation to rest when on his song Stepping Stone from Kamikaze he rapped, "The less is left for closure, so let's let this go. It's not goodbye to our friendship, but D12 is over." After that nail in the coffin, the other members of D12 have all focused on their solo careers. In 2019, Swift, Kaniva, and Bizarre teamed up under the D12 banner for a rare tour of Europe alongside Snoop Dogg. But after the worldwide lockdowns that set in soon after, that's put any other touring plans on hold for the time being. As for the rest of the D12 story, well, that's a video for another time and place. After all, this is Where Are They Now? And you're all caught up with the history of D12. Be sure to let us know what you thought of D12 in the comments down.
All right, y'all, that's it for this video, and I'm out. Peace.